Hello there YouTube and welcome back to another video here, and today we are finally back up to date with series 12 with the review of the most recent Doctor Who episode, which is Can You Hear Me, the 7th episode of the series. And after this we've just got one more episode till the finale, which I am certainly very excited for, and Doctor Who cannot stop bigging it up, so I'll be very disappointed if it isn't any good. Anyways, let's get into the review. So, this episode, finally, Chibnall's living up to his promise with giving us cold openings. So we finally get a cold open in this episode, and it's a solid cold open. Introduces us to... We're introduced to Tahila. Hope I haven't pronounced that wrong. And she is on a run, as she has just stolen stuff from a merchant because it makes her happy, so fair enough, I guess. Yeah, anyways, but we get some great shots of Aleppo. Well, the whole Aleppo thing did feel a bit not 100% necessary. We did get some great shots of Aleppo, and it didn't bug me as much as it did other people, but all the same I do see their points. But yeah, the cold opening is a good start. It introduces us to the monsters, one of the monsters of this episode. With the CGI creature, and yeah, and it was pretty scary start because that monster certainly did look pretty darn scary. So yeah, it's good. It was just good to see a cold opening again. And so we get titles, and we go to the TARDIS as it lands in Sheffield to drop off Graham, Ryan, and Yaz. Graham must hate it, by the way. Doesn't he live in... No, wait, does he? No, he doesn't live in London, does he? Sorry, ignore that. I certainly didn't say that. Yeah, so it's good to see the companions having their normal life, though. Because we haven't actually seen that really at all. We saw it briefly in Spyfall Part 1 even. A little bit in The Woman Who Fell to Earth. But apart from that, we've pretty much not seen it at all. Saw Ryan in Resolution with his dad, but that wasn't really sort of like normal life for him. So it was nice to see it, and this episode did do like great for the characters. They had some great character development in this episode, but I'll get onto that later. So then companions leave, and Joe's on her own, and so the companions then go to see... Well, Graham goes to see some of his bus driver mates. Ryan goes to see his best mate Tebow, who was introduced in Spyfall Part 1, playing basketball with him, as one who was walking off just before he got in the car. And Yaz goes to see her sister for, at this point, this random anniversary which we don't know about, but obviously in rewatch we do know what it is about. 3 anniversary, sorry. And then Jodie's sort of left on her own. Now, one of my issues with this episode is sort of Jodie's capture. It bugs me a lot more first time viewing, but then hearing reviews of it and just thinking of it more, it didn't bug me as much second time, but it did still have some similar issues. So this episode's like message. Actually, let me just get this out of the way. The message of this episode is about mental health and opening up and stuff, and it was done brilliantly well. This is definitely the best message being integrated into the story, because they've Orphan 55, it was just slapped on top of it. Praxis, it was sort of merged into the story, where it was sort of... It wasn't like the main focus of it, but it was definitely there. And it was just well done. But the Can You Hear Me is pretty much the story. This episode is like a great... It's just a metaphor for like depression. Like if you look into it in detail, you can just see all of it there, and it's... Unlike what we've seen in this series, it's actually done really, really well. In this episode, we're introduced to some of the companions' insecurities, and it's sort of, as it's shown that, I feel like it sort of gave Jodie some, so that it like, for message-wise, to show that everyone has it, even people you wouldn't expect, and that's fine, because we've seen that doctors have had stuff like that before, but in certain situations, it did bug me, like when the companions left and Jodie was in the TARDIS and sort of said, well, you know, what can I do? Actually, I might just pop to next Tuesday. on its own in this episode that was fine, but considering 2 episodes ago in Fugitive of the Judoon, you find out that Jodie's been going away on her own to Gallifrey and in search of the Master, and I was hoping to see that side of her instead of what we got. Because that was set up 2 episodes ago, it sort of feels a bit disconnected and sort of a bit forced. What I'm trying to get is, as much as I can sort of see where they're going with it, it just didn't really work for me, and it just sort of bugged me. But as that scene plays out, then the TARDIS sort of goes zoom dark, and then what's his name? Zelen appears with his awesome transformation, solidifying, appearing, whatever you want to call it, where it sort of like forms out of a shadow. Or shrouded in darkness, however you want to put it. But yeah, he then appears and sort of just stares out and Jodie to the Doctor, and she doesn't realise he's there, and that immediately just makes him quite creepy and really eerie and really unsettles you about his character. So he's introduced really well. He then fades away, and then Jodie traces where the roar came from and realises it's from that creature in Aleppo. So then T-Bill throughout this episode has some sort of character arc about him not being in the greatest of places and getting over it. And they set up well from the start. When Ryan sort of knocks on the door, meets him, and then he sort of like seems a bit odd, like not quite there. And Ryan persuades him to let him in, and then closes the door with like 15,000 locks. And George just sitting there like, that's a bit odd. So his character arc set up well, and then and it sort of continues on when they are playing a game, as Ryan says, FIFA, playing FIFA, and then sort of just sits there looking moody, but just quite out of it. I think the thing that this episode does best with the message, it's not really a message throughout the episode like it felt in Orphan 55. It just felt like big message, like big message coming up. But with this, it more felt like a point and it sort of showed you why. As I said earlier, it more feels like the episode, not a side piece a separate idea to the episode, and then just try to integrate it to the plot. And this episode does that brilliantly well, with mainly, like, it focuses quite a lot of it to T-Bow, and then later on it focuses a lot of it to Yaz. He then, later on, like, Ryan goes out to the kitchen, sort of says, why, it's usually spotless in here, why not? And he just gets a bit defensive at first, but then begins to open up to Ryan, saying that he's struggling a bit, and then says there's something else. He's been having bad dreams, but worse than the usual, like proper messed up, and then sees this figure that keeps on appearing in them, and then he begins to appear in real life and in his bedroom. So that's, and we presume at that point that it is Zelen, which it is. So he asks Ryan to stay over for the night, to just make him feel a bit safer, and then go to Yaz. Yaz falls asleep while watching the movie, and then she has we go into her dream, or nightmare, where she's standing on this long road, empty road, and sees a sister in the distance, and this policewoman and police car behind her, and then her sister appears right in front of her, and she wakes up, and we're like, oh, what's happening? Because this episode really makes you question what is going on at first for quite a while. Leaves you so many questions at the start of this episode, and it gets answered pretty well for the most part of it. And well, yeah, so and then when she wakes up, she sees Zelen standing over there, just peering over her, and it's just like, yeah, that would be messed up if you woke up and saw him just standing there and then fade away into shadows of darkness or whatever it is. Yeah, that is really not like a pleasant thought to think of that. And then we go to Graham, who's playing cards with bus driver mates, and it gets his vision of this woman, and sort of just begging him to help her and save her, and then sort of saying this is where they put me, and we got a vision of these two planets colliding into each other, looking like they're about to collapse and fall apart into nothing. So it's just, yeah, it's certainly confusing from the get-go. Something that I will mention though, just quickly before I carry on, is that it was I think it's a good thing to note because this episode definitely did feel like it was setting up potential character, well, potential of characters leaving by the end of the series, and like I think I'm gonna do a video about this next week because next week I will be doing. I'll be doing a video every day in the lead up to the finale, so like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday we'll have videos. And one of them will be my theorising about what's going to happen to companions by the end of the series. But it's interesting to note that they mentioned that Yaz still thinks about what happened to her 3 years ago. Just interesting. Anyway, so Zelen fades away from Yaz's flat and appears with Tebow, and then he sort of stands there and stares at his hand and his fingers detached from his hand, and that's just grim. That whole thing was quite grim and not the nicest sight in the world. And then that finger flies and pops into Tebow's ear, so it carries on being pretty darn grim. And it's just nasty, to be honest. Having someone else's finger just sitting in your ear and projecting a nightmare into your head and then projecting that to someone else. Yeah, it's yeah. And Ryan wakes up and goes to Tebow's room and sees Zelen there, and Tebow obviously with the finger in his in, and he I'm just going to say teleport for reasons. Teleports them both away. But anyway, taking a break from this and going over to Jodie because I've been focusing a lot on the companions, and that's something that these last two episodes have done. The companions have definitely had more of a role in episodes in the last two episodes than they generally have. Because well, yeah, they just really haven't been utilised that much. But in these last two episodes, they've actually felt like they have a purpose, which I like. So going to Jodie. So Jodie meets the Doctor meets Tihala, I think. Tahila, that's it, Tahila. And then they see this creature, I can't remember what it's called, but it was from Tahila's nightmares, and it was really creepily designed. That was a disturbing monster. It didn't really pop up much until pretty much not really properly until the end of the episode. Yeah, it was good seeing that, and then she sort of introduces herself to Tahila, and then gets a call from the companions of them speaking about the weird events that just occurred to them, just happens to them even, and then takes Tahila with her to meet the companions. Then something that I will mention, and I've complained unfortunately got about the Doctor's character in this episode, is that I felt well, firstly the Sonic was way overused, but it wasn't as bad as it was in Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. That Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror was being used for genuinely no reason. It wasn't even achieving anything. It was just being used and nothing changed. But with this, it did advance the plot a little bit. So at least it did have a purpose when it was being used, but it still was being overused. You would have hoped some of it would have been just her physically doing it, not just Sonicking a panel. Anyway, and also there was a lot of pointless dialogue in this episode. It reminded me a lot of the Battle of Ranskot of Kolos, and for Jodie's character, that was my least favourite episode for what they'd done with the Doctor's character. So yeah, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the Battle of Ranskot of Kolos, but it was reminding me a little bit of it because there was a lot of pointless dialogue in this episode. And seeing as I'll get onto later on, when we see the timeless child, when she wakes up, there's genuinely no reaction to it at all. And then just before she goes into that nightmare, she just says, "Oh, come on." You would expect even the Doctor, considering what's happened recently, her to react a lot differently, a lot more, well, just differently to how she did. Yeah, so how she did react, but it just didn't really feel like what you would expect. Yeah, I think the thing that bugs me most about this episode just is Jodie's character. There's not much I don't dislike, it's just this and how it was old. So then once Doctor meets companions, they sort of go to the spaceship, and it was a beautiful shot of the spaceship. Um, and I'm glad to see we're finally leaving Earth, since it, as much as it was Earth, it still didn't really feel like Earth. Orphan 55, but technically that was still Earth. So we haven't really had an episode of this series that hasn't really been on Earth. So it's good to see that we spent a large chunk of the episode being on the spaceship instead of Earth. So when we go to the spaceship, and that's when we start beginning to sort of, we think we're starting to understand stuff. Where we find this computer system, and Graham recognises the two planets, and it's revealed that there's something in the centre. I think Doctor says a geo orb or something like that, or gravity orb, something along those lines. And it's revealed that the woman is in there, being held captive as a prisoner, and they need to rescue her. They then find out that Tahira, I really struggle with this name, but Tahira's missing, and go to find her. And then they bump into Zelen, and Zelen sends them into nightmares. And it was really interesting seeing the companion's nightmares. And so with Yaz, it was back on that hill, and then Sonia is telling her to do it right this time. No one's coming to save her. No, she's not going to call anyone. And we understand why that terrorizes Yaz so much at the end of the episode, because when we find out what that is. And we go to Ryan, and thing is with Praxis and Orphan 55, and kind of Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, is they've, well, not really Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, but it's not really the content it has in the episode, it's more the vibe you get of the episode. But Orphan 55 and Praxis, you feel like that had the same issue as Series 11. It could have been in any series, in any episode number, in any order, and it wouldn't really feel that much different. But this episode definitely felt very Series 12, because it had references to Orphan 55 when Ryan was at the end of the earth. Tebow is an old man. Felt like he's been betrayed by Ryan. And then the dregs appear, because probably what happened, the events that occurred in Orphan 55 scared them a lot more than any of us realised. Then this episode has quite a few references. References like places that they've gone in Praxis, Hong Kong, Madagascar. References the events of Fugitive Of The Judoon in Gloucester. Sonia thinks it's Russian somehow, and also when Doctor meets Zelen, he brings up the Guardians, the Eternals, which I think he's one of the Eternals, but not 100% sure. And then references the toy maker from the episode Celestial Toy Maker, which is and it's characters that I just genuinely didn't expect to be brought up again. So this episode had quite a few references to previous events and stuff. And then Graham had the nightmare of having cancer again, and seeing Grace, and Grace saying, "Why didn't you save me?" And then just, you can tell that it's still daunting for Graham with the death of Grace. Yeah. The Doctor, being unaware of this, then bumps into Zelen, and then they finally meet and interact with each other. And their first, their first interaction scene was very well written, very well done. It's quite intense. And it's something that Zelen definitely does have is. He definitely has like a godlike presence. He says he's an eternal. He says he's above the Doctor, and the Doctor's beneath him, and he's this all powerful mortal being. And you believe him, because he has that sort of presence brought to him. Ian Gedler, who played him, done a brilliant job of that, and Charlene James and Chris Chibnall also wrote him very, very well. And so, like, at the end of this sort of confrontation, Zelen then tricks the Doctor by anticipating her actions. When the Doctor thought she's tricked Zelen by releasing this woman, but this woman turns out to be the same sort of being as Zelen, and so she's just released another god creature to, well, take over planet Earth pretty much. Then then followed that was then Odyssey in Doctor Who for sure, where they explained these characters through use of animation, which is not something you've ever seen in Doctor Who before. Obviously, we have the lost episodes are getting animated, but we've not really had something like this, like intentional animation. As they're only getting animated because that's the only way we can see them in visual form. Yeah, it was an interesting scene. So, I don't know, I don't think will work often, but like on occasion, yeah, it worked this time. So once the animation scene finishes, Doctor then is sort of cuffed up, to whatever that was, and then Zelin sends her to sleep to be trapped in the nightmares, um, and then they teleport off to Earth to take over and feed off people, the human race's nightmares. Yeah, and seeing them walk off, and that was a really good shot of sort of like, I can't remember what her name was, but the woman walking down, that shot was really unsettling, but seeing just them feed off people's nightmares. Yeah, then we cut over to the Doctor and we see her nightmare. And it's interesting that her nightmare is the timeless child, which means when she knows what it is she afraid of it? Is it but if she's afraid of it, does she know what it is? And something that I was kind of intrigued by, does Ruth's Doctor know what the timeless child is? If Jodie had asked what Ruth's Doctor, would she have answered? That's what I'm intrigued by. But yeah, it's just begs the question: who could she be? I've heard some rumors say that that's the Doctor, but I don't think it is. Honestly, I just can't see it being the Doctor. The Doctor definitely has relevance to it, but I don't think it is the Doctor. But also, I think the question that's gone through my head is, where is she at that time? Is that Gallifrey or is that somewhere else? Is that even in our universe? That scene was really interesting to see. I'm glad they put that scene there because it sort of connects this episode to the series up, which is something that we lacked completely from Praxis. And then she wakes up, and somehow the Sonic flew into her hands. I wasn't convinced by that at all, but whatever. And then she wakes up everyone else and sort of like gives them a lecture and debriefs them on what they're going to do. They lure the Eternals to Aleppo by use of the creature. That's sort of coordinate across the time winds or something like that. And then sort of just say to them, well, just you underestimated us and humanity is better than you think. The resolution in stereo is definitely too easy, and it definitely did try to a little bit. Disappointing since these beings are so supposedly big and powerful that they defeated so easily. That definitely did bug me. That was annoying. But anyways, once that happens, we then get to like the proper character development in this episode where we see Ryan with Tebow, and Tebow's sort of there, just sort of saying, when you come back, I need my best mate, and Ryan sort of agrees with him. And it seemed like that makes me think Ryan's definitely going to leave at the end of the series. It was confirmed a couple of weeks ago that he has signed a deal to be on another TV show and quite in like a main role or something. So it's highly likely that Ryan could be leaving by the end of this series. And I think he will after seeing that scene. I think he will leave as his own accord. So that's my this is so fun. It's 34 that video I'm doing. And he got him to go somewhere. He got him to sort of like go with some sort of people, so he could open up about his issues and why he's been sort of down. Sort of told him that you gotta do this for me, and he can't argue. And seeing them open up about that was a really nice scene. It was written really well. It's just genuinely a good scene, and it's good for his character as well. Like his character's got some like decent development in this episode as well. So I wouldn't mind seeing him come back at one point. Although if Ryan does leave, I can't see it happening. And then we got over to Yaz thinking about what happened 3 years ago, and then it's revealed that that road was where she gone during educational years. I don't know whether it's school, college, or university, or something like that. But she left home because she was pressured and bullied and stuff. And this police officer came and just sort of spoke to her, gave her some advice, saying if this is just a moment, is this really worth it? And sort of saying if in 3 years' time, I'll make you a bet. If you still feel the same, I'll give you 50 quid. If you're much better, you give me 50p. And then later, once that flashback is finished happening, we go over to that finding that woman and giving her 50p, and it was a really emotional scene. Like when I rewatched that, I had tears in my eyes. It was a beautiful scene. It was great development for Yaz. I do wish that we had something like this in series 11, but I'm just happy we finally got it. Some development for Yaz, because the character definitely needed it. And then we have Graham opening up to the doctor about his cancer and his fear of it returning, and obviously it overcoming him, and it just killing him. And that was a really nice scene. Although the doctor's reaction to it, as much as it shows that it shows this is nothing that bugs me, but also doesn't at the same time, because it shows that her insecurities, that her socially awkwardness, and just not really feeling like she knows what to say. But all the same, as much as I get that, she also has thousands of years of experience in life, so you would think she would have said something. It might not have been perfect, but you would have thought she would have said something. So that's, I wouldn't say disappointing as words, but just annoying, I think. That's how I describe that. Yeah, so, and then Yaz and Ryan have an interesting conversation about the life of Notards, and sort of saying, is this our lives now, just growing up ahead of all our mates and family? Is this really how we want to live the rest of our lives? And just in that they both might leave. And then sort of Dr. butts in and sort of says, right, let's go to see Frankenstein. And the episode pretty much ends. So yeah. So anyways, in conclusion, this is a brilliant episode, really well written. Has a couple of issues, like overall the villains are good, but they were defeated too easily. The Doctor's character does feel a bit off in this episode, as much as there's a reason for it. It still doesn't work entirely. But overall, it's a really good episode, especially for the character development it adds and the emotion it has. So I'm going to give Can You Hear Me an 8.5 out of 10. Being one of the stronger standalone episodes of this series that doesn't have much series arc relevance. So anyways, thank you for watching this review. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you have, please do leave a like. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and please do subscribe if you want to see more content. Tomorrow will be a preview of The Haunting of Villa Diodati, and then the next video after that will be the reaction to it. But yeah, so apart from that, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.